professional, your schedule is really tied into your, in a way, your employer, but I'm glad that you were able to get some time to come and join us today. So we really, really appreciate you coming today. So the way this will work is that I will ask some questions just to get the conversation started. We will engage in a respectful manner, and then we'll have our students ask questions. So, first, I will do a brief introduction of you because I don't want to say too much about you. I want you guys to share a little bit more. So first we have Cynthia Velasquez. Cynthia obtained her Bachelor's of Fine Arts in Arts Administration from FPU in 2019. Cynthia is a visual artist, illustrator, and a muralist. She's currently working for Mennonite Central Committee. And then we have David Torres. David obtained a Bachelor of Science in Biology with the Human Health emphasis. And so he graduated in 2017. David is currently working as a medical scribe at St. Agnes Medical Center through Vituity. So, and then we have Angela Leon, who obtained a Bachelor of Arts in Social Work from Fresno Pacific in 2017. He went on in advancing his education to obtain a Master of Science in Education and Counseling with the PPS credential, and that is from National University in 2019. Angel is working with Central Unified School District as a school counselor. And we have also Shayla Castillo, who is joining us today. She obtained a Bachelor of Arts in Criminology and a minor in Psychology. She graduated from FPU in 2021, so she's recently graduated. Shayla is accredited by the Department of Justice to provide assistance in immigration documents and any cases related to immigration. She's currently employed with SIREN, which is Services, Immigrant Rights, and Education Network, and she's an Immigration Program Associate. So let's give it up for our career panel. So before we get started, do you guys have any questions before I start asking questions for you guys? Okay. Well, thank you. The first question I just want to get started is, obviously you guys have graduated, you guys have gone through the whole journey of how you guys selected your major. So I want to ask you all the questions. How did you balance in choosing your major? If we can go back to your undergrad studies, how did you decide that this was the major that you wanted to study? So we'll go ahead and get started with whoever wants to go first.
I can go first.
Okay, thank you.
I started off as a poli-sci major. I took some classes. I did not like macro and microeconomics, so I immediately wanted to change my major. So I was like, this is not for me. So I was talking to some friends, and they really enjoyed the criminal justice program that we have here. It's very small, and there are very few professors, but I really enjoyed the program. I started taking some criminal justice classes, and I was like, yeah, this is for me. I feel like it's more practical and more theoretical than it is just learning about the criminal justice system. And then eventually, when I was starting to take more criminal justice classes, I realized that a lot of the classes interconnected with psychology. So that's when I eventually decided to add on the minor as well.
So I guess for me, I didn't really know exactly what I wanted to do coming out of high school. I was kind of guided to the path of medicine by my parents. I was originally wanting to become something in law enforcement, maybe part of the Fresno PD or the SWAT team or something. And as an only child, and I guess a first generation child, my mom did not like that very, very much. So we all collaborated together, and we're thinking of what's the best way I can serve our community with the least amount of danger. So medicine was the path that they had laid out for me, and with that, I chose my a degree in biology with a human health emphasis. Originally, it was just the pre-health major, but as I got into my studies, I still wasn't sure if medicine was like my whole thing. And if I ever felt the need to go into something different, everybody had advised me, like, you should just change from a pre-health to biology. It's a very slight change in terms of classes, But the title is what is really helpful, because with a biology degree, you can go into almost anything. You can go into research, you can go into veterinarian, you can go into marine biology, sociobiology, psychology, anything with the biology degree. But with free health, someone who's stuck into the medicine side. But I found that medicine is still for me after all that, and so I continue on, and I just love my biology.
I started off as a graphic design major, and then I think I lasted a semester in that. I mean, when you come to FPU as a first-time freshman, I mean, most of you are probably taking general ed or took general ed. I didn't really dive into graphic design. I took art appreciation, but that was general ed. But I had friends, close friends that were in the social work major. And I still wasn't sure about social work. In my head, all I thought about social work was working for CPS. That's when I said, CPS, I don't want to take babies away, right? In my head, that's what I thought social work was all about. So I changed my major to Spanish out of all things. And I grew up in Mexico, you guys. I learned Spanish. Like I studied there until middle school, so I feel like I was pretty good. And then I started my major in Spanish, and I thought, it's too easy. So I learned this in like elementary school, right? So I did end up changing my major my sophomore year one more time to finally social work. And I learned way more about social work than, of course, than I think what the news portrayed or what people talked about social work. And I did my internship at Children's Hospital because I love working with kids. And I thought I was going to be a social worker. And then I graduated. I should add, I also added a minor in psychology, just because how many classes intertwined between the two degrees. But after graduation, I stayed working at the admissions office here as an admissions counselor. So there, I got to work with high school students and getting them to apply to Preston Pacific and come here. So working with high school students really opened, in a way, my heart to want to support that population of students, which then led me to get my master's in school counseling to work there.
For me, I started liking art back in high school because it was like right when I came back from Mexico. I was born and raised in Mexico, and I came. I didn't speak English, so I thought all of the classes I was taking were like pretty hard. And for me, art was like the only class that I felt like pretty comfortable there. It's just drawing, even though I did not have to draw, I had no idea. But I always knew since I was in Mexico, I knew that I wanted to do something. Not with drawing, but I wanted archaeology and art history, and that was my dream. So when I came, I discovered that I would like art, and I was like, oh, this is actually cool. So I actually know how to do. But I took my 4 years of high school, like just taking the same class. And until my teachers were like, okay, it's enough. Now, like, it's time for you to move on, because I know I want to stay here. I really do. So I always knew that that was what I wanted to do, but I just didn't think about anything about career-wise. I just wanted to draw. And even though I had a doubt that I was like, I'm not like that at all, but I told people I was. I was like, look, I know how to draw, but deep inside, I can learn. And so I just continued to go to school, and I continued to learn. And one of my professors at college at Sequoias actually told me, like, you're always gonna be learning. Like, there's not gonna be a day where you say, like, this is it, like you learn enough to do what you gotta do. It's like you're always gonna be learning things like your whole life. So that's when I was like, okay, so now I can actually put this to work. And I continued to go to school, and I knew that I was gonna do something, or I didn't know what. So coming to FPU, I spoke to one of my art director, and she recommended to do art in business.
So it was like the great combination. And I chose FPU because it's the only school that offers art and business. Whereas like Fresno State only has studio art and like for teaching. So I knew I wanted to combine both. And I did wanted to work in art galleries because I was still pretty scared about like jumping into doing my own art. But I wanted to stay in the safe side. So I'll just sell art and I'm art collecting. So art collecting is just kind of like arting, selling people's artwork. And after the pandemic, I realized that galleries were closing, like everything shifted. So I lost my job, which was a blessing because I took 1 year of working and doing anything. So I sat down and I started working on my craft. And I kept coming back and forth with our counseling. Estella helped me a lot through figuring out like what I wanted to focus on. So yeah, I started doing illustration, and somehow I jumped into journalism, and now like I feel like I'm still exploring like all the possibilities of art that art can bring. But one of them is to do art education and public art.
Yes, thank you. So I just wanted to take you guys back to like, what made you decide on your major? Because many students now are also in that journey of deciding, how do I even decide like what to major in? How do I make the decision, or what do I base it on? So thank you for sharing. So I just wanted to take you back to that moment, and now I want you guys to share, where are you now in your career? Share a little bit of who are you working with, what is your position, and what are you doing there? That way, students can hear how the decisions you make in life, they can continue to develop and evolve, and then just tell us where you are. Anyone can take. We're not gonna fight. Who goes first?
I can go. So after leaving FPU, like my job at FPU, not my education at FPU, in admissions, I finished my master's right before I left FPU. And if you know anything about the counseling, the competitive nature of being a counselor in the Central Valley, it's tough. You probably know because you were a counselor. It's tough because if you remember your high school counselor, they retire when they're like 70 sometimes. Like it's a good position, it's a good job to have. So a lot of people don't want to leave. So the positions really aren't out there. So I had to really be creative and fight for a job in a way. And people always told me that I had the benefit of being bilingual and being a male, because there aren't a lot of male counselors out there, high school counselors. So I applied everywhere, and I moved to Stockton. In fact, that was I applied to 3 jobs, and all of them were in the Bay Area. Stockton still falls into the Bay Area, but so I guess jobs are out there, just not in the Central Valley. So I moved 2 years. I lived in Stockton. I worked at a high school there. And then I applied for a position at Central Unified. And it was like a broad, just Central Unified counselor position, but I came to find out that it was for a brand new high school. So it's a brand new high school called Justin Garza. You know about that school. Yeah, we don't even have seniors yet. Next year we will. It's that new, but I love it. It's different working with students from the I call this the Central Valley, right? Like Stockton it's like the Bay Area Central Valley. It's different. They're just different populations. So this is where I'm used to. This is in a way home. So I love that. I get to just to work with those kids. They make my hair gray sometimes, but it's rewarding. It's rewarding.
So for me, as Angel said, for art, especially for artists, I don't know if you heard, but it's almost like impossible to find a stable job for artists. And I think like 1% of makes as an artist, especially in the places where art is not So I guess like out there, you have to move. And I was always told, are you sure you want to be an artist? Because there's no way. You either have to work as a teacher, or you have to work as an independent artist, which is going to take you a long time. But I always believe that, like, I always believe that if I really like this, and if this is who I am, like, I needed to know who I was. And I tried a lot of jobs before saying this is what I want. Like, I tried everything else because at some point there was no jobs. I tried to search the jobs that were out there that were kind of related to what I was doing. Basically shut the doors on me, and I just gave up for a minute. And one of the things that helped me is the power of it, and the power of relationship building. And one of the things that I was doing was talking about the things I do. And I sat down, I wrote my vision. I was like, this is what I want art. So for me, it was like having a clear understanding of why I'm doing it and how I'm doing it. How am I doing this differently? And if the Central Valley doesn't have jobs, how can I be the one that starts to like plant a seed and tell people, hey, it's not true. You can what is it, like the quote? I think you can flourish where you're planted or something. So one thing I did was I started networking, and I had already known, I don't know if you know Dina Gonzalez, but Dina Gonzalez was working for FPU. Somehow we got together through one of my friends, and when I met her at her house, and I found out she's an art collector. So she travels places, she collects artwork, and we had a conversation. And somehow, like, she was from, I don't know if you've heard of it, MCC, Mennonite Central Committee, but it's an organization and it's like basically share God's love, and we send basic human needs to like all over the world, to countries that are in need. Like right now, we're basically working with Ukraine, and we have different programs. And I'm still learning because I'm pretty new. But one of the things I told her was like, you are working with cultures. So if you're traveling and your work is global, it's you have to have an understanding on like the cultural backgrounds of the people, because you go and work with them in their region, right? And that's why you have all these art collections. But how do we educate people about the aspect of art? And how can we help them, not just to provide those needs, but also educate them even here? And since we have also people who come and start with us from all over the world, how can we understand their art? Or do you have any artists in your organization? So we sat down, I told her my vision about art and murals, and they hired me. They were going to hire me for a mural project for one of the offices. And I did the proposal. And that's another thing that I thought was like creating my own work was I was actually doing a resume, and I was actually doing a proposal for a job, but I didn't know. I just wanted to do the mural, and I really wanted to be hired to do that. So she took it to the headquarters, and she came back offering me a job because they really like what I wrote. But I think for me, it's like really having a vision of what's your purpose, and networking, and actually talking about like what you want to do and why. And people like the people that need you will find you, and they will work with you. So actually that was the first job of an artist that the organization has ever had in 100 years. So this organization started in 1920, and they have never worked with an artist, which I'll be. And the vision is to basically start the division, like the art division, and maybe hire other artists around the globe and just somehow like little by little educate. But I, like besides the organization job, I'm also a freelance illustrator. So I work with what I call editorial illustration. So I work with authors, well, that's like where I'm going for. So this is actually the first book that I've ever done with like with the author from Tulare Unified District. So this is the first one as a brand after. Yeah, so that's like another thing that I like. It's like freelance work. That's my employer. So yeah, that's how I got to work, and I like it because now it's like expanding and me learning about cultural backgrounds, about my own, working with different people. And my title is community artist and educator. So I'll be working with exterior like the community, like school sites. I'll be working with churches, and I'll be just doing freelance with organizations. So it's very like broad, but at the same time, it's helping me kind of like navigate, you know, like what exactly I'm doing. It's very, it's like everything. And a lot is also graphic design, logos for the organization, t-shirts, art talks, and I'll be working with 6 schools in the area. So just doing after school programs with children, teaching them about art and all of that stuff. That for the next 6 months within the organization. So it's gonna, I think it's gonna work.
Okay, well, I guess for me, when I left FPU, I wasn't sure how to begin my path. I'm the first in my family to ever even attempt to become a doctor or an MP or an PA. And so I have no idea of what to do to even start, which is something that is very important that you were saying was networking is going to be very important to you because people are willing to help if you ask, but you'll never get that help if you don't ask, which was my problem. I never asked because I didn't know what to do, what to ask. So I have friends who have left FPU, graduated the same time I did, and are currently in medical school, but that's because they had the knowledge behind what to do to start and what to do to start continuing that path. When I graduated, I was very burnt out. I had been going strong since, kindergarten and schooling, very academically oriented, and I just wanted a break. I didn't feel like I had continued to go and try and go to medical school. I wouldn't survive medical school because I was so far burnt. I wanted to take a year off. I wanted to go, travel, spread my wings, go see what else the world has to offer. But that didn't end up happening. A very strong push from my parents who were saying that, if you're going to take a year off, you're not going to sit at home and do nothing. You have to do something to work towards your path. And so that's when the scribe program at St. Agnes came into my lap. I didn't want to be a scribe. I just was very indifferent towards it because I just wanted a break. That's honestly all it was just I wanted a break. But I interviewed. I had my chance for an interview. The whole process is basically similar to how you would be applying to medical school. And I didn't know this until recently, but they tailored it that way to get you prepared to start, learning what you kind of do to start going into medical school, to go into PA school, or even nursing. And so, if I can just explain the process really quickly. You do your primary application, which is you'll send the transcripts, maybe an essay of why you want medicine or why you want to prescribe. And if you're currently in school, then they would just want your unofficial transcripts and see how well you're doing at school. If you meet the requirements, academically, and you have the right mentality for medicine, they will grant you an interview. And once you have an interview, we get to know you a little bit more, and they get to know exactly what makes you you and why you want to go into medicine. After that, if you pass the interview, you get to go to a spelling test, which is 2,300 words, held over 3 days. And it's 5 lists, so each list is approximately 200, 300 words. Once you pass the spelling test, then you begin your on-the-floor training in the emergency department. So you'll be under a veteran scribe who's been there for maybe 2 years, 3 years, and they'll teach you the ropes, teach you how fast you have to be and how to adapt to certain situations. And it parallels medical school so much because just like the scribe program in medical school, you have to send your primary application. If they like your primary, then they send you secondary applications. If they like your secondary applications, which is kind of like a light interview, then they'll offer you an interview with whoever's going to be helping decide if you are going to be admitted to the school. And the interview process for medical school can make or break you. So it's really important to try and get to that point. So once you get there and they like you, you'll begin your time at whatever medical school is admitting you. And it's similar to in very different ways. Like the spelling test for the scribes is similar to the MCAT you have to take in order to be able to apply. Once you pass through the spelling test, and once you get that interview, medical school and the residency after that is like your proper training as a scribe. You're underneath somebody else who's mentoring you on how to navigate, how to get through, and how you want to keep moving forward. And then eventually, you're where I'm at. I've been in the scribe program for almost 4 years. Basically since leaving FPU, and now I'm teaching, and that's basically what you do when you graduate medical school. You go into your own practice, you start caring for people, and then eventually you're going to have people come under you, and you need to train them on how to be a good doctor, how to be good at what you're doing when it doesn't even feel like you may have been there so long yourself. But this is the role. This is the overturning of the process. But I didn't do any networking, and so that's why the scribe program became so important to me, because I've learned so much on what I need to do to get to my next step at the scribe program versus being on my own and not knowing who to ask or what to do. And then it's just been a crazy ride. That's all I can really say.
I think for me, when I did end up switching my major to criminal justice and I took classes, I think I was really interested in becoming a victim advocate for domestic violence. Specifically, I was like, I want to work at Marjorie Mason. That was really interesting to me. But I think, like they have all said, networking is really important. And taking advantage of opportunities that maybe you're not open to are important. That was the interest that I had at first, but then a friend of mine, he was like, hey, my aunt, she works at an organization and they're like looking for intern fellows. I was like, oh, what is it? And then he told me it's an organization. He said, I don't really know what they do. I just know that they provide like immigration services. And I was like, oh, okay. I was like, I've never really thought about going into that. I'm a child of immigrants. And so I was like, maybe that might be too hard to deal with because my parents are immigrants and that might be like too much. But then I decided, you know what, I'm just going to do it. So I applied for the fellowship and I did, I was the immigrant rights fellow and I was still at FPU. So I started when I was a junior here at FPU and I was doing my internship there. For the criminal justice major, you do have to do internship hours. So it worked out perfectly. I was like, oh, okay, well, I'm doing an internship. I got my hours, like it's gonna work out well. And then I just had the idea of doing this internship and then figuring out what would be next after. But while I was doing my internship, I did a lot of networking with the attorneys there and got a lot of experience. When I was an intern, I did a little bit of everything. So like tabling at events, doing outreach. doing presentations on know your rights, for example, like if a community member encounters ICE in their community and they're undocumented, what do you do? So that's the kind of things that I was doing while I was an intern, and then also just shadowing some of the attorneys with the work that they did. The organization that I work at, they actually they have an office in San Jose and one in Fresno, and the one that they opened up in Fresno had just opened up the year before. So it was like, oh, you're our first intern here. And it was really cool. I was like, oh, you know, it was a lot of learning. It was a learning experience for them because they never dealt with an intern, but then also for me as well. So I would shadow the attorneys in the cases that they took on. Their focus is mainly with asylum and refugees. So right now they're working a lot with like Ukrainian and Afghan refugees. And they also do removal proceeding cases. A lot of organizations here in the Central Valley don't do those kinds of cases. And those are for individuals who have been detained by ICE and are now being in, they have a case open with immigration. So that was their main focus. And it really interested me. I think at first, of course, being a child of immigrant parents, I was like, this is a lot, like, how do I like not take this home with me? I think that was the biggest learning process for me. But then after a while, like being open with the attorneys, like, hey, how do you do it? And just learning a lot more about not only the work, but also how to deal with it after was really important. And I think that's what allowed me to stay. So I think I would have just left it. You know, this is too much. There's so much trauma that you hear about every day from different refugees. But I think what allowed me to stay was like learning a balance between your personal life and then also the work that you do. So I eventually, one of the attorneys, my supervising attorney said, hey, I think you'd really be interested in getting accredited by the Department of Justice. You'd be able to help individuals get more assistance with like their applications. You'd be able to like represent them in interviews with immigration, things like that. And I was like, oh, that's like basically what you do. It's like, yeah, it's basically kind of like a attorney, except you don't have as much of the education. And I was like, oh, okay. So there is a long application process that you have to do. You have to get several trainings for different kinds of forms to review eligibility. There was a course that I took, a comprehensive law overview. I think it was about, I want to say like 2 months. And then at the end, you have to take a test. Once you get that certificate, then you have to submit the actual application to the Department of Justice and just wait to be approved. And I was approved September 2021 for that accreditation, which was a few months after I graduated from FPU. So I was like, oh, this is really cool. So now what do I do with this? Since I'm accredited, am I still an intern? And then they offered me a full-time position, which worked out. So it's like, oh, you know, I just graduated. This is great. So now I help some of the cases that we take on. We take on, like I said, asylum, removal proceedings, and I help the attorneys with writing declarations, filing motions to immigration court, and then helping with different kinds of cases, like adjustment of status, individuals who are petitioning for family members. And then I'm also in charge of our monthly DACA removal clinics and our asylum clinics that we do every month as well. So I think, honestly, it's just been a learning process. I had no idea what I was getting myself into at first, but then once I started, I was like, you know, I love it here. And then just, I have seen the work that the attorneys do, and it's really inspired me as well to be able to pursue that career, to become an attorney. I applied for law school last year, but I didn't like the financial aid that was provided. It is really expensive. If you are wanting to get into law school, it is really expensive. I forgot to mention, but I'm also a DACA recipient myself. So going into law school, I knew that I needed to get scholarships because as a DACA recipient, you cannot take out loans. So a lot of individuals who go into law school take out loans. They have the ability to take out loans. And that ranges from anywhere between $140,000 up to who knows how much. So I knew like, oh, I can't take out loans. So what do I do? So I decided to wait. I was, you know, I'm not gonna sell my kidney to get into law school or anything like that. So I decided to wait, and I'm reapplying again. I did take the LSAT twice. So it's been a journey, but I think it's been really helpful. I think like he mentioned, David, right? David, yes. Like David mentioned, you don't really know how to get into these kinds of places as a first generation student myself. Like I had no idea, like how do you get into law school? What kinds of things do you have to do? Like what kind of classes do you have to take? How do you get there? What application do you fill out? It's I think it's a learning journey, and I think networking is super important, asking many questions. I wish somebody would have told me what you need to do to get into law school when you're still in undergrad, because I would have taken the LSAT then instead of having to study while I'm working a full-time job and making time for that, and then also needing to take the test and working on applications and all that stuff. It would save you a lot of time if you're wanting to go into it directly. So I would just say like networking is super important, and just being open to new opportunities that you wouldn't ever picture yourself in.
Well, thank you for sharing. It was great to hear how you asking this question, what you study as your undergrad, your major, and how far you have come, and how far you're still gonna go through. Because as God says, when God opens a door for you, there's no one who can close that door for you. So thank you for sharing the tips for networking. That is very important, especially for our first generation college students, because in our family, especially if you're coming from a Hispanic family, they don't know the word networking. They just know more like, I don't know how to help you, just go to school, they're gonna tell you. And in reality, in school, you have to learn how to navigate. Who do you go to help you navigate higher education? And that's why now I'm sure, and you'll be teaching our high school students all that stuff too. So. And so now I'll go ahead and open it to our students. That way you guys can ask your questions. And sometimes we don't even know, or we don't, again, we probably are not prepared to even like, what questions do I even ask? So that's why I give you guys a handout. You can take a look at that, but please ask questions. They're here to share their personal story and how they prepare themselves with their education. I even heard trainings and all this stuff to get to where they are right now. And so please ask questions.
I have a question. So right now I'm currently a pre-health major with an emphasis on nursing, so wanting to be a nurse. My question is for David specifically. How did you navigate like just starting a process of applying to like schools, like taking tests and all that? Because I know I do have to take like specific tests to get into nursing school. So what was that like? I mean, I don't know if you have to take tests.
So I have to take MCAT once for trying to get another school. I applied once in a school year. I have not. My repeat MCAT is coming up in April. But for nursing specifically, I believe nursing looks a lot like your clinical experience. So to get started, we probably want to start volunteering. You can volunteer anywhere. This is actually FPU is where I got part of my big passion for volunteering. You can help out with the Fresno Rescue Mission, the Market Mason Center, the Pink House, anything that you can think of that is showing that you want to give back to your community. And then transition from those volunteer opportunities to either getting an internship or volunteering or maybe even a part-time job somewhere clinical, because they want us to know that you have been exposed to the environment that is medicine and you understand the field that you're going to be going into. You want to be able to know that, hey, these are the people you're going to deal with, this is the environment you're going to deal with, this is what you're going to see. You know, are you ready? Are you willing to continue with this even after seeing it for so long? And so that'll be a good thing to start getting under your belt, is figuring out where you can get some clinical experience, caring for patients. You may not be providing direct care, at least like as scribes, we don't provide direct care to patients, but we are there listening to their stories, hearing the doctors' mentality of, you know, this is what could be going on. There is a possibility that this could be happening, but here's the reasons why I'm not thinking this is what's happening at all. And then after that, start looking into schools you may want to go to, look at their mission statements, look at what programs, you know, if you want to leave Fresno and go somewhere else, see what schools offer a nursing program. If you want to stay in Fresno, Fresno State has a nursing program. Fresno Pacific now has a nursing program. I was mad when I figured out that the year I left is the year the nursing program started. So, but definitely look into the nursing program and see what they have to offer. See if their mission statement aligns with your values. See if what they're asking of you, you live up to. You have the qualifications to do this. And if you feel that your statistics are not up to par, maybe you start working towards getting some of those statistics up to par. But you are also so much more than just your grades. You're so much more than just your, I believe the exam for the nursing is called the NCLEX. And so that would be like my version of the MCAT. So you will need to take that, and they will take that into account, but you are also more than that. So have a good statement of, why medicine, why you have been set on this path and what you want to continue doing forward into this path. How do you want to care for people? Where do you want to go to be in nurse? Do you want to be in pediatrics? Do you want to be in geriatrics? Do you want to be into underdeveloped areas, or do you want to be something that is very more towards, I guess, like getting back to the community? I know if you go to Kuya Delta, they do this thing every now and again called street medicine, where providers from the Kuya Delta donate their time and will go and give basically a medical interview or examination of people on the streets who can't afford to get into that. So it's just different things that you want to start to really to just get yourself on the path. I don't know if a lot of the teachers here when I was here are still here, but definitely they did have a lot. I know Dr. Thompson, I hope, is still here. He was a great help. He, I don't think he went to medical school per se, but he is a big researcher on cancer. So if that's something that interests you as a nurse, you could also go to something like that. And that's what I mean by networking. I didn't ask my teachers much of what I should do. I was too focused on getting my work done. Dr. Thompson's tests aren't a joke. But definitely for sure, start asking questions, start looking into where you want to go, and look at what offers other schools have for you as well as much as you can offer.
Anyone else? Well, Angela, can you share a little bit about the work that you do with students? I know we have in students here. Some of them are pursuing careers in counseling or psychology, some in the MFT program. Can you share a little bit more about how you support students emotionally, socially with this specific age, especially?
Yeah, high schoolers are so different compared to how I was in high school 10 years ago, which not that long ago, but they're different. They're what they like is different. What affects them emotionally is different. The terminology that they're around, it's different. So as a counselor, I think Alex said I'm blessed in the district that I work at because I specifically focus on their academics. We have a counselor that focuses on their social emotional, and then we have a counselor that focuses on their career. We're a team, so I'm always going to have a little bit of everything, but it gives me reassurance knowing that if I know I can't handle it, there's someone on campus that works with me that can. But I do run, the first day of school I had a suicidal student, I had to do 5150, so that involves the pleas and immediate intervention. So because I was the person talking with that student, I was the one that had to do it. In situations like that, you can't go, oh, let me send you over to the other counselor. No, because it's immediate, right? So it's a life and death type of situation. So as a counselor, no day is the same. But it's rewarding in the sense that you get to see the students go from brand new freshmen, and then you see them progress and you help them kind of come to terms with what their goals are, their potential careers, their majors, their universities that they want to apply. It's very rewarding. And I feel like I'm always working on my toes too, because parents are a different addition to counseling. But it's awesome. I wouldn't trade it. Like I mentioned, I studied social work, and I thought I was going to be a social worker, a medical social worker. And I still, part of me thinks that, should I go back to get my MSW, my master's in social work? But really neat story that recently came, that I experienced, I should say. One of my students is going through leukemia. She actually just finished her cancer treatment at Children's Hospital, but her social worker was my mentor at Children's Hospital. So I never thought that I would find myself doing the work I was doing at Children's Hospital as a counselor, but it all like interconnected, because now I'm mentoring her to get back on task, because she has to leave to do appointments, so she just falls behind the time. But I get to understand what she's going through, because that experience that I had at FPU and my internship at Children's Hospital helped me in a way connect with that population of students that I never thought I would, put together as a counselor. So I think I went all over the place, but I hope I answered the question. Counseling, it's unpredictable because you deal with a lot of social, emotional, academic, career, but ultimately it's rewarding, because it is a helping profession. You are helping others, our youth, make life-changing decisions for themselves that ultimately sometimes are life or death. Like doing things.
Anyone else has questions? Well, our students eventually will get to a professional level too, where you are right now. And can any of you guys can take this question, tell us a little bit about evaluations at your job. If you have evaluations, how do those take place? How do you take the feedback that you're receiving in your evaluation? Anyone can share.
Well, I'd like to kind of let you say that. So as a scribe, you're actively documenting each patient's encounter. So that means you actively have to get audited based on, do you have the correct information down? Does your doctor agree with what you're saying? Because if they don't, believe me, they will tell you. But it starts getting so much more and more to the point where you have to be able to take the system very well. I am currently the director of recruitment for the scribes, and being a part of leadership for the scribes, and being a veteran scribe myself, it is my job to not only be the best I can be, but to hold others that I'm training to be as best as they can be. They may not be as good as me because I've been there for a while, but they do have the capacity to be a great scribe. I believe everybody has the capacity to be a great scribe, and to be great in whatever they want to do. But you have to be willing to roll with the punches, take the hits, because you're not going to start out perfect. You have to be able to learn that, hey, I'm going to fail. And you have to be able to get back up. You have to be able to tell yourself, I failed this time, but what can I do to make myself better the next time? Which is what I try and preach to all of the new scribes that come in, is you have to understand that you are where you need to be. You are where you need to be right now, but we need to get you up to where you can be, where you have this potential. We need to bring that out. We need to make sure that you're rising to the occasion. And at every opportunity, you're going to have a moment where you need to rise to an occasion. And you may not always be it, and that's fine. You may not always be able to complete the task at hand, but the point is that you gave the effort, that you did the absolute best you can. Even if your best at that moment is just not good enough, that does not mean it won't be good enough later. You keep building, you take the criticism, take what people are saying not to heart, but at face value for what it is. This is just them telling you how you can improve. You'll be able to tell when someone's giving you feedback and it's malicious. If they're blatantly telling you, this charting sucks, and there's no other feedback other than telling you that it sucks, well, that's just plain malicious, right? Now, if someone tells you in the same words, this sucks, but let's break it down and see why it's that way, then that's positive feedback, you know? Maybe it's just the mannerisms or something. So don't always take everything to heart. Take the criticism as you can. Yes, some of it may be blunt. Yes, some of it may not necessarily be what you want to hear, but at least in my profession, you can't really sugarcoat everything for everybody. So take it with a grain of salt. You know, you got a little wound, put a little salt, put a little lime on it, wipe it off, you're good. That's all I can really say.
When I was doing my internship, we did evals. We did one like every year. So I only did it twice since I've been at work for 3 years. And yeah, I think like David said, you can't really take things personal. I think one thing my dad always told me was don't listen to how they're saying it, listen to what they're saying. And it's very helpful because you're listening to, you know, the criticism or feedback that you're getting back. Of course, you don't want to get yelled at by your boss either. So advocate for yourself if you're getting yelled at. But yeah, you can't really take the work personal if you're working in a really fast-paced profession. You just really have to listen to what they're telling you, take the feedback and work on it. If you make the mistake again, that's okay. Just get up and make sure you're, you know, learning from the mistakes that you are making. I don't know if this is the case for every profession, but usually when you do evals, it comes with a raise or some kind of form in which you can advocate for yourself, what your needs are as well. So use that time also to advocate for yourself. You know, you're also, it's like a contract. You're providing services, they're paid. So you also have to advocate and express the needs that you have when working at in a profession. So make sure you're advocating for yourself, but also take the feedback that they're giving you. Yeah, don't take it personal. If it's a fast-paced profession, like I said, or like it's a contract, so they want something out of you too, and they want to make sure that it's done adequately. So if they give you feedback, it's so that they can improve in their organization, but also so you can improve yourself as well.
Yeah, it's pretty spot on. In my profession as a counselor, I think in the education field, it's pretty common to have evaluations. I have an evaluation once a semester with my head counselor of a person, she's my supervisor. But it's there for a few reasons. One, they want to check in with me. How am I doing? You know, do I feel like I enjoy my job? What do I need? What's lacking? How's the team feeling? What do you see your students are saying? Because sometimes students say something, parents say something, and teachers say something, right? So you're trying to be the middle person in all this. But also the evaluation is there to make sure that I, as a counselor, am meeting the school counselor standards, the ASCA standards that are set for counselors. So am I helping students reach their graduation goals? Like I said, we don't have seniors yet, but once we have seniors, one of the evaluations is going to be, let's look at your numbers, let's look at your caseload. How many of your seniors graduated? How many of your seniors are behind credits? What have you done for them? What services were offered to them, and which ones didn't take advantage of it? So we're in a way being audited because in a way districts make money by how many students come to school, how many students graduate, how many students, you know, go on to get higher education. So sometimes they're a little intimidating because I feel like, you know, I am the responsible person to like make the money come through the district. But in a way I signed up for this, right? Like I knew what I was going into, and I take the criticism for what it's worth. Sometimes it does seem blunt, but I always try to look at it. How is this going to make me better as a counselor? And it really does help to have a supportive mentor or supervisor. I've seen people leave jobs because of their supervisors, sadly. So I hope when you get there, you have a really good supervisor. It really does make a difference.
Yeah, for me, it's just kind of like concluding what they say. Definitely, well, for what I do is a little different because The art is a little more like, it just really depends what the clients are asking for. So the nature of my job is literally like network. So it's like I have to do community outreach a lot. And sometimes like people have a vision of what they want to see. Like for example, I'll give an example for like this book. The author had she had a vision. I had a vision. Sometimes the thing is like you have a vision for your work, and then the person that you're working with has a different vision. So I think that evaluations like effectively come to communicating very well and being honest with where you at and understanding that you're learning. And the people that you're working with are learning with you, whether or not they're conscious about it. But I will say that just be honest with your work. And if you don't know something, like ask. And ask it exactly like, hey, what do you mean by this? Like, are we like checking into, and like they were saying, like having a mentor, a supervisor that you trust with, and just letting them know, can you give me feedback on this? If you're not sure on something, like just give me feedback. I'm not sure about this, and working with us. This took us like 7 months to complete. So she had a different vision, I had a vision, and I had to sit down. And a lot of the times, people that don't have any knowledge about art, they have a vision in their mind of what they want. And my work is kind of like helping them figure it out what they actually want. Because I don't want to make it sound bad, but like sometimes they don't know what they want exactly until you sketch something, and then you're like, okay, I bring this, like I'm gonna bring her vision into life to see if this is what they want. So I do that, and then they're like, okay, I don't like this. I don't like this color. Can you change that? And sometimes it's like telling, like they're telling me like, can you change these? Can we work with these? But sometimes I have to tell them I can't work with that. Like being honest, like it's not possible because of this and this and that. And this book, like she had a vision of having for example, like the words that like she wanted the words on the illustration. But I felt like if you have the words on the illustration, you're gonna have these, and kids are going to focus on both of the illustrations at the same time. Whereas if you have the words on this side and the illustrations on this side, they're gonna pay attention to what's going on in this specific page. So things like that, like understanding the nature of your work, and understanding the nature of their work and what position you hold versus what position they hold. And like working with people, everybody has a role. And so taking that feedback as well and giving feedback to yourself and understanding, like auto criticism is like very important. And when I was here at First Pacific, we, like in all of my art classes, we had criticism and evaluation of our work. And just understanding that, hey, don't sit too long on bad criticism, but also don't sit too long on good criticism. Because I can be very praised for the work that I do. And they tell me your work is amazing, I love it, but I know that it's like, I appreciate that, but I know that it's like, I still have to work. And so sometimes when you have a really good feedback and really good evaluation, you get comfortable. And that's not good for you either. You need to be challenged. And you need to challenge yourself as well. And you need to like take that feedback, just meditate on it, and just be like, okay, on to the next level. But also always like just checking in, even without them having to come to you, you can go to them when you feel like, okay, it's time to check in. So I would share that.
Well, thank you guys. We have come to a close. Thank you for your time. We greatly again appreciate it. We're blessed that you made some time during your schedules. I know you guys are busy. Can we share a new newly father.
Yeah.
And Joel's so super busy. Just if I can just have one word of encouragement to our students here as they continue to wrap up and continue their studies. One word of encouragement.
One word.
I know David's gonna be like, I need more.
Right, I do, I really do, that's another topic I want to talk.
Yeah.
Definitely, perseverance. Perseverance, don't give up.
I would say honest, like be honest with yourself first.
Ask. Or you just ask for help. Ask for opinion. Just ask.
Don't know but I have 3 C-discipline.
Well, thank you, everyone. Let's give it up to Cynthia and sharing your story with us today. We really appreciate. I do want to let you guys know we hope that we can do more career travel and again, this is just to celebrate our national first generation college student, and we appreciate that you came over and shared with our students your stories to show motivation to our students to continue. I do want to let students right here in the spring semester, we have a career achievement program, which is a series of career development workshops that prepare students for that job search. You share a little bit about your internship experiences, your job search, and how you prepare yourself. So we would love to still stay connected with you, and hopefully now that you guys are professionals can come back and help us with mock interviews, even the networking luncheon, which you have touched on so much. The networking is so important in your career. So students, you're welcome. We will be sending more information for the spring semester, and then our career panelists will for sure stay in contact.
I did the CAP program. So that's
Oh,
cool.
great. Great. Well, thank you so much for sharing. Thank you, guys. Yeah. Oh yeah, yeah. Okay, go ahead.